Black Myth Wukong is a threat. It's a threat.
Black Myth Wukong is one of the most anticipated games of this year. If you're anything like
It's
me,
been anticipated for 3 years.
I can't wait. I'm a big Souls fan to begin with, so I can't wait to get my hands on it. But with that said, it's also
every
been
action combat game from now on is like Dark Souls.
Game that's had a lot of hit pieces
It's just
ran
the way
on
it
it
is.
ever since the game's reveal. Just recently, I ended up reading an article from The Guardian where they're going in and talking and parroting the same points that I've seen many other journalists say, and trying to paint the game in a bad picture, specifically trying to send the message that, hey, yeah, it looks like a good game, but, the developer doesn't say very nice things, and we probably shouldn't support them.
Yeah.
So today what I want to do is I want to talk about the media's obsession with Black Myth Wukong, but more than anything, I want to talk about why they're obsessed.
It's not Black Myth Wukong, it's blackmail. That's what's going on here.
Heard Black Myth Wukong is blowing up before its release. The game is already the most wishlisted game on Steam, and just the other day, the benchmark tool brought in over 85,000 players at its peak.
Insane.
An optimization testing tool brought in more players, 40 times the amount of players as Sony's open beta of Concord. Low blow, I know, but it'll become a little bit more...
it's a low player count, too.
...relevant later on. With that said, Black Myth Wukong's developer, Game Science, likely has a breakout hit on their hands, and this is their debut title. But there are those that are out there that want to try and stand in its way.
Yep.
Just a couple weeks ago, Tom Regan of The Guardian wrote an article titled Black Myth Wukong, the summer's most exciting and most controversial video game.
I love how people that write articles like this like to pretend like something's controversial because them and their 3 other retard friends that work in the industry complain about it. Nobody thinks this is controversial except for you and 3 other people that are as dumb as you are. Nobody else thinks this at all. This is Hogwarts Legacy all over again? It is.
Beautiful looking action game is based on Journey to the West, the great Chinese novel, but its own journey to release.
And my perspective with this is, again, never let people live this down. Not in 2 years. Never let them live this down. Anytime they do something, keep in mind, always discredit them. Never, ever let them live it down.
Hit a bump in the road. Tom writes, after playing Wukong for an hour and a half in a London hotel suite, watched nervously by Game Science employees, I can confirm that, somewhat miraculously, this stunning Chinese mythological twist on Dark Souls delivers on that showy trailer. Marrying fluid-feeling combat and reflex-testing difficulty and the expensive filmic sheen of something like God of War. As I sprint through Wukong's dense jungle, ducking and dodging through a deadly array of flora and fauna, I come face to face with everything from gi-wearing toads to nightmarish gigantic-headed infants.
This is the game, by the way, that doesn't have diversity. Keep all this in mind. This is the game that doesn't have diversity.
Many of its brutally challenging From Software-inspired peers, the difficulty in Wukong feels expertly judged. My simian avatar met a grisly end more times than I care to admit, but I persevered. Eventually, I defeated enough foes to unlock new abilities. Soon, I can perch atop my staff mid-attack, giving me an edge against its murderous mythological monsters. I can buzz around the forest as a stealthy cicada, summon flames from my glaive, and eventually topple a snarly, lorry-sized werewolf atop a crumbling temple.
I think that people write like this to prove that they know what a thesaurus is. I think that there's a huge problem with the way that journalism and writing is now. Reading writing like this, it feels more like I'm reading masturbation rather than information. It's pseudo-intellectualism. It is.
We're Under Great Pressure reflects one of Game Science's co-founders who was introduced only as Ted. Game Science wouldn't give his full name via translator. This is the first time we have worked on a PC and console game, and we are also a new studio. So we really like to think how tolerant the players and the market is towards us. Their excitement encourages us. However, the thinking of Chinese people tends to be, we look at the risks. And therefore, when we're faced with such great encouragement, the best thing we can do is to try our best to satisfy the expectations of the players and communicate with the players in a very honest way. China has
that's the problem right there. It's that they're communicating with the players instead of the journalists. That's the whole problem. That's why the journalists are mad. Is because they cut out the middleman.
The mobile gaming market. You look at everything that HoYoverse has done, from Genshin Impact, Endless Zone Zero, Honkai Star Rail, Honkai Impact Third. These games have made a lot of money. They have a lot of players.
They do make a lot of
And
money.
what they've done is they've actually paved the way for
I need to
Chinese
make a
developers
gacha
to be
game.
able to reach global markets, something that was relatively inaccessible for them in the past.
Yeah, true.
And in that, I'm actually kind of surprised that we're not seeing more skepticism when it comes to a new studio that hasn't released a game before, that's releasing a AAA game that looks as good as this does, and it's coming from a country that we normally don't see a lot of games come from in the first place. But I think it's great that
we've seen a lot of games recently, like Once Human, for example, and I think there's a number of other games that have started coming out of China that are pretty good. And I think that it's undeniable that, like, the way that China has obviously become a lot more part of, like, the modern Western world, or they've become at least aware of it, or, you know, like, kind of a satellite to it. Nowadays, I think that's had a huge impact on their culture. And so one way it's impacted China's culture is that over there, people used to want to be astronauts, and now they too want to be influencers instead of doctors. So you can see the American influence in China as well. And I think this is going to be like a global internet culture that's evolved. And I think this is a good thing. Not that particularly, but in a general sense, people becoming part of a global internet culture is a great thing.
Seeing that support, because from my perspective, I just want to see more video games, and the more countries that are out there that are making them, the more diverse ideas and cool games that we can play, and that's what I'm all about.
I think that's one thing that's really exciting to me about Wukong is, like, I don't know how many games I've seen that are about Norse mythology, and I love Norse mythology, but I've seen it 100 times. I want something new. I want something that's like you know, like the same way like how I played Lost Ark or like Final Fantasy 14, and it's like, how have I not known about this like amazing, crazy, awesome thing that's existed for years? Well, like, this has only existed for like a few hundred years. So yeah, I want to see some new crazy shit. I'm Scandinavian, I agree. Yeah, exactly. Slavic gods. Yeah, I mean, like, I think that would be really cool too. Like, any of that stuff would be really cool. Witcher 3 is Slav mythology. Yeah, it is. Like, obviously, like, you see a little bit of that. I mean, obviously, like, Baba Yaga, I think, is like probably like the biggest example, like Chernobog, etc. But like, even like what do you call it? Indian mythology, or like any of this stuff.
To be honest, we haven't really even seen that many AAA games come
Mayan
from China
Aztec,
in the first place.
yeah.
I think the only one that I can think of off the top of my head is like Raka Blade Point. That's pretty much about it.
Yeah, it's a Chinese game.
But one of the things the developers brought up was that they feel like they're under a lot of pressure, and I don't think people really understand or recognize just how much pressure that they're under. Because keep in mind, they have far more rules and restrictions that they need to follow before they can even try to ship a game outside of their country.
Well, there's also like the huge cultural expectation that this game that represents one of the most nationalistic countries in the entire world, that has more pride than almost any other country in the world, and they are the ones who are in charge of telling this story to the world. That is a crazy amount of pressure. That's nuts.
And way more restrictions than Western studios have, that's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But with that said, you also have, you know, clashes in culture and things like that. And I think what they've chose to do, especially with Black Myth Wukong, is just emulate the success of another game and try to adapt their ideologies or their philosophies of game design into their game. And that's what Black Myth Wukong kind of represents to me. It's a smart idea. You're going to be able to hook up with a pretty large audience because a lot of people really like Souls games, especially after Elden Ring. So it's a great idea to be able to reach as many players.
Well, it's not like Dark Souls invented action combat games either. I mean, like, look at God of War. Like, there's plenty of games that have come out before Dark Souls that were like this. The truth is that action combat games are just really popular because they're super fun. Like Devil May Cry, yeah, like there's a million of them.
Possibly can. But one of the other difficulties that they're running into is one that's completely unnecessary. And it's the fact that for some odd reason, there are a lot of Western critics that do not want to see this game get any level of success.
Yep.
Tom continues with his article saying, I am unfortunately met with very little honest communication when I bring up a report from IGN which related alleged sexist comments from multiple developers at Game Science, as well as those in leadership roles. I presented Ted with the opportunity to address those claims of misogynistic posts and whether he feels they represent Game Science's values. Instead, I am shut down with a hasty no comment from their UK PR representative, and then, after a long wait, given a longer statement of no comment via Ted's translator. I am then told that Game Science's US PR agency will follow up later with a prepared statement, only to be sent the following. Game Science is focused on the demo at this time and will only answer questions related to gameplay.
So, abso-fucking-lutely, by the way, abso-fucking-lutely Giga Chad move. And you have to understand why it's a Giga Chad move. And in order to understand that, you have to understand what the power dynamic that these journalists are trying to create is. So what they do is they create a problem, or they identify a problem, and then they make this problem seem like it's a big issue to the company. And then the company then needs to capitulate to this like journalist company or this magazine or this group in order to make them happy. So the entire power dynamic is created off of caring about what these people think. So that if you don't care what they think, the entire thing falls apart. That's it, right? The response translates to I don't give a fuck, right? They blackmail you, exactly. And so they basically create this thing where they appoint themselves as the arbiters of what is acceptable and what's not acceptable. They define where you are on that parameter, and then they want you to play inside of the rules that they created in order to make themselves relevant. That's what's happening here. It's a power trip. Yes, it's an absolute power dynamic. And the only way you win this game is by not playing it. That's the truth. That's the way you win the game right there, is you just simply don't play the fucking game. They try to create their own power. Yes, they're creating their own power. And a Chinese company doesn't care about that. And I think that more American companies need to feel the same way. You educated me on the whole game journalist thing because I never paid attention to all the bullshit in the first place, but I didn't realize that other people do pay attention. It's like this with other types of journalism too. It's just that games journalism is small scope enough, and it's enough of a microcosm for us to be able to perceive everything that's happening inside of the space. But I think the exact same thing probably happens in larger scale journalism too, but it's more abstract and you're not able to perceive it as well.
Related to gameplay.
They want to take the moral high ground.
The same thing happened to an IGN reporter at a demo in Los Angeles last month. It is
and you can see how obviously if Game Science just simply doesn't take it seriously and doesn't listen to them, then they have no power. Because this isn't a problem that the players have. And this is a very important component too. Players don't have this problem with the game. Journalists have a problem with the game.
That Game Science is opting to invite journalists to speak to them and play the game, but refusing to answer their questions. Perhaps there is no reassurance to offer. A generous reading of the situation would be that this isn't...
Well, it's that any reassurance reinforces the power dynamic that they've created. By giving them a reassurance, or by even denying it, you speak into existence the power dynamic that they exist inside of.
Inexperienced studio petrified of saying the wrong thing.
Yeah.
Yet, in failing to say anything at all, Game Science is also failing to distance itself and its game from multiple crude, disparaging, and misogynistic comments attributed to its employees and leadership. Journey to the West, of course, is
and you can see the words, these are weasel words. And this is something that, like, a lot of people that aren't really experienced in this petrified said, yet in failing to say anything at all, Game started failing to distance itself from the multiple crude that are attributed to. See, attributed to is different than said. Attributed to means that somebody said that you said this. Said something is that you said it. And these little weasel words that are used are done in a way that an average person without a more erudite knowledge of language would not notice. And these are the ways that people manipulate language and they manipulate thought. The silence is deafening? Yeah, exactly. They're weasel. Yeah, they're absolutely rats.
Journey to the West, of course, is no stranger to the world of video games. From Ninja Theory's 2010 Alex Garland penned and Andy Serkis starring Xbox 360 adaptation Enslaved: Odyssey to the West, to Akira Toriyama's world-conquering Dragon Ball, It's a world of myth and monkeys that lends
Imagine
itself
that.
perfectly to gaming.
Keep
Black
in
Myth
mind, this is the game that doesn't have diversity. Always keep that in mind.
Wukong's stunning visuals, cinematic beauty, and refreshing sense of speed could well make it the best playable adaptation of the Fable to date. But the unreserved excitement I would otherwise feel about it is being trampled by the elephant in the room. Guys,
This is like the same dynamic. This is like the professional version of, did you tell your parents that you're gay yet? This is the journalist version of that. When did you stop beating your wife?
Be honest with you, I cannot believe that they wrote this.
Me
The
too.
elephant in the room, huh? I would imagine the elephant in the room is the fact that the report from IGN was found to be heavily mistranslated and misrepresented.
Well, it doesn't even matter whether it is or not. I think people are just simply, even if everything that they said was true, that is going to in no way, shape, or form affect the way that I'm going to play the game. Because I don't care what the political leanings or opinions of the developer are. If the game is fun to play and it's enjoyable and it's not in the middle of my face when I'm playing the game, then I don't really care about it. These people are they are activists that are LARPing as journalists that are now getting mad that they're being rejected by a group of people that are consumers and not also activists. The YouTube link goes to an Asmon video, by the way. Yeah, because a lot of other people didn't talk about it. Like, I usually, like, again, I try to cover all of the, like, any of the bad topics, I'll cover them. It doesn't bother me.
Misinformation about a studio either by the way of IGN's ignorance or their malice. The report that they mention is something that was parroted by almost every...
It's both, by the way. They're stupid, and they're also with bad intentions.
Other gaming news site. Headlines with this narrative ran wild since the reveal of Black Myth Wukong's trailer a few years ago, making sure that players know, yeah, the game looks cool, but guys, this is a very bad developer. This misrepresentation even led to Game Science's studio allegedly being vandalized by the people that were claiming to do it based on that news of the studio's quote-unquote sexist culture.
If I was the Chinese government, I would unironically fund a lawsuit to sue the fuck out of them. If it was actually mistranslated in a way that wasn't accurate, I would sue them into fucking oblivion. We could finally have a CCPW for once. For defamation? Yeah. Reminds me of the Hogwarts bullshit? Yeah, this is exactly the same. Except the difference is that this studio, like the Hogwarts Legacy, they still paid lip service to it. And like they were like, no, that's not true, it's not true. This studio is just like, shut up. Shut up, we're not accountable to you. Which is, by the way, 1,000 times better.
Eventually, through social media, readers and critics pointed out the mistranslations. Hell, Asmongold's editor, Clip's editor, did a better job of reporting and investigating, showing all of the mistranslations.
Context. IGN.
That's because the reason why is that there have been a lot of instances where I've been wrong about something, and I do try to be accurate in what I say and what I do in my videos. I understand everybody likes to meme about like, oh yeah, spreading misinformation, I don't really know what I'm talking about, etc. Sure, but my goal primarily is to be as accurate as I can be. And to understand things in a way that is the most complete. And oftentimes that puts me at odds with the audience. I'm at odds with the audience all the time because of this. Because people have convinced themselves of one thing, and then they hear something else, and they say, fuck you, I don't believe that. But yeah, obviously we've got great editors that work on the YouTube channel. They do an amazing fucking job. And, you know, I'm very lucky. I think that we all are.
Published an article trying to smear the company
They sure
and
did.
the devs behind Black Myth Wukong as some sexist freaks because of some of their employees' social media posts.
I gotta get Kaisi to translate this shit to actually see if it's true or not.
The article cites one of their artists who basically did the still wood about this monster. The problem is that this game...
Yeah, I would too. Like, I mean, it's not a secret. Yeah, I mean... Who doesn't? Yeah, I mean, is this a,
either by
if that's a problem to you? I'm sorry, but I don't want to hear your opinion about anything. Just a fucking idiot.
Incompetence or malice translated these posts in the most uncharitable way possible. And this is nothing compared to the most egregious mistranslation after one of the game company founders posted this in 2020, apologizing for the lackluster trailer of Black Myth Wukong just released. Now, how on earth do you get?
I want to expand my circle and hire more people. Get licked until I can't get an erection.
In reality, the actual translation completely changes the meaning of what he was saying.
And it's like, this is the... Do you remember what I was saying before about how, like, there are some people that are like, they're like Redditors that are so stupid and they don't even know that they're stupid? The arrogance that a writer would think that he's actually talking about getting blowjobs from his employees, the level of arrogance and ignorance of that is derived because it's somebody who has never had to communicate for somebody else through another language. That's the reason why. Now, I've told you guys this before. I think I probably said it in the original video. I have to talk to two girls. One of them's Korean. And I had to use a translator to talk to her. And there would be a lot of things that were like lost in translation. And she would type me some stuff, and I'm like, this is the most retarded, dumb fuck thing I've ever read. This is so stupid. There's no way she really meant this. And I'm like, she explained it a different way. She's like, oh, yeah, okay. And it's like this. I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah, for sure. Relatable. Yeah. So, like, I know how it is.
Satisfied, I went back checking if anyone called this out when it happened, and they did.
And ultimately, this all led to the original writer of the IGN report giving a backhanded non-apology, avoiding the conversation of mistranslation, still perpetuating the lie, and upset over Game Science's lack of response. And that the
exactly, right? Because it's all about the power dynamic. That's what it exists in. This entire thing is about a power play. And Game Science doing this is actually one of the biggest W's. I'm so happy to see this happen. I treat patients through translator apps a lot. A lot can get lost in translation. Yeah, man, that must be really scary. Like, yeah, that would freak me the fuck out, right? Because, like, fuck, that sucks.
With a Monkey King and a bunch of anthropomorphic characters doesn't have enough femme-coded characters. I am beyond myself. The gall to come forward and say something like, maybe they don't want to say anything because they're afraid to say the wrong thing. What exactly is the wrong thing?
I'll tell you what the wrong thing is. The wrong thing, in my opinion, is trying to explain to them and justify yourself. You lose when you play the game. Apparently, this is like a racial thing now. I didn't know this, but like growing up, there was like the story of the tar baby, right? Where it's like the more you get involved with it, the more dirty it makes you. Now, this apparently is a racial term. I learned this when I just used it randomly, and people were like, what the fuck? But like growing up, it's like fucking with a porcupine, right? There's a lot of other variables that I can use as well that are effectively the same thing. The more that you try to deal with somebody like this, it's like dealing with somebody on Twitter. Like, there have been a lot of times where I have written tweets and then I've deleted the tweet before I send it because I realize that there is not any outcome of this tweet that will improve the quality of my life. It's a waste of time to do it. And that's why I basically never, ever, ever tweet. I never talk about it because I don't owe anybody an explanation. I don't owe anybody anything like that. Somebody gets mad about what I say, too bad, fuck them. Tar Baby's not racist. Somebody started trying to say it's racist. Well, it's the same thing, guys. Well, here's the thing, right? If you're in the South, there's a lot of things that if you're a racist, you can make almost anything sound racist. And so I think it's an issue. Why? Well, actually, wait a minute. Why are we even talking about this? Let's move on. Anyway, the point is that if you engage with people like that, you just simply empower them and you get yourself dirty in the process.
Because apparently you already think they said it to begin with, even
Yeah.
though it was all mistranslated and misrepresented in the first place. Sure, they may have said some crude things, but you don't understand their culture or the intricacies of their language and how
right.
they use colloquialisms and
Yep.
things like that. So you're just applying what you believe onto what they are saying. I'm appalled.
It's another example of a probably upper middle class liberal privileged person in a first world country that is trying to colonize another culture by it's like the best like fictional comparison that like I have to the people like this is Dolores Umbridge from Harry Potter. They think that they're doing a good thing and they're right, but they're actually so profoundly fucking wrong and wrong-minded that it's insane. Why liberal? Because conservatives are getting mad about other stupid stuff instead. Yeah, I mean, Yeah. Yeah, they're like just stick around for a week. I'll make you mad too, okay?
Ridiculous is what it is. I'm shocked. I don't even really know how to respond to something like this. I think that Western critics and game journalists, not all of them, but some of them, view these Chinese-made games and games made in some other countries as a threat.
They do.
Because these are studios that will not fall in line with whatever
they're not accountable to them. And the thing is that once the Chinese studios show that they're not accountable to these game publishing companies, it will indicate to all of the other companies that are in the West that they too are also not accountable to them. And once that power dynamic that's completely fake, it's imaginary, once that is dissolved, then these companies have they like that's their bargaining power. It's like basically if I say something and then somebody says they're offended, if I'm worried about offending them, they have control over me. But if I don't care about offending them, then they don't. And so it is in the person's best interest that you care that they care. But the moment that you stop caring is the moment that they stop mattering. And the reality is that they never did. It's just that now the public is starting to realize it.
Narrative is, even if they are in the wrong. Because there are times, and there have been times in the past, where the media was wrong about something, but still wanted and still pressured the studios to do something and say something that otherwise went against it. Mm-hmm. And that's exactly what they're trying to do now. Still running with the exact same narrative, even though it's already been disproven. What is the point of that?
It's a power dynamic. So and this is something that's very common inside of any sort of oppressive power structure. One of the most powerful forms of exercising power inside of an oppressive power structure is an unequal or unjust application of that power. And the reason why it works so well is because it proves that the power is not accountable. It proves that it doesn't matter who's right or wrong. And it is a pure and raw explanation of power. And if you want, and this is what I've said before, right? If you want people to not fuck with you, don't be fair. Be unfair. Because people can predict fairness, and people aren't afraid of what they can predict. But they are afraid of unfairness because they don't know what's going to happen. And people are more afraid of the unknown than anything that they can predict. Always, always be unpredictable. And I think this is another dynamic of this, is that, and you see countries do this a lot, where like somebody gets put in jail for like a really long time for doing something that's like super small, minimal. Like, for example, Russia with like that basketball player bringing in a weed pen. Like, should she be in jail for 1 year for that? Like, realistically, I think everybody in the Russian government even knows the answer to that is no, it's ridiculous. But they do it because it's a power play. And that power play goes really fucking hard. That's why it happens. You quoting Musashi? Well, I don't know. I'm talking about like this from like what I've experienced myself.
Because now what they want is that even though it's been disproven, well, we still want you to tell us that you like women.
Mm-hmm.
What are you doing?
Yeah.
What is the point of this?
Power play. That's why. It's all about
and
power
even
play.
more so when you're putting out an article talking about the overall feeling of the game, how much you enjoyed the game, and then you have to put something like that in there. Like, we don't know what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
Trying to spin a narrative around this game to make it feel like, man, you should probably feel bad about playing this game, guys. You should feel bad about it. They're bad people over there. They say mean things on the internet. They say crude things on the internet. How dare they? I think the worst thing possible out of all the things that they said was there was an image of like a snake woman, like a lady that was like, her head was a regular person, but her body was like a snake. It was some like horror creature, and they were like, still would.
Yeah, if you posted that on Twitter, it would get 100,000 likes. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, true. Why do I feel bad about playing a game? You shouldn't.
Are you serious? What, like they're not allowed to be human and take part in meme culture? Are you serious?
Yep.
What is this? What, like,
well, these people are grown up. Like, I guarantee you, most of these people were losers in high school. They probably didn't have any friends, and they were outcasts. They were probably the kind of girl that, like, you know, their friend group kicks them out in middle school. And so, like, from then on, they, like, have some, like, fucking, you know, they're like a 1,000 piece puzzle with, like, 993 pieces. And, like, they can never fucking find those last 7 pieces. And they're constantly fucking upset about this with a chip on their shoulder. That's what it is. That's the kind of people. Like, these people are profound losers.
Like, thought policing and...
Yeah.
I don't know, man. Like, I'm so happy that their position was, we're working on the demo right now, and that's the only thing that we want to talk about. Because at the end of the day, that's the only thing that actually matters.
Exactly.
The game matters. What they do outside of that has no impact whatsoever on what consumers actually care about in the first place. Some of these some of these journalists and games media heads wonder why they're losing subscribers, want to know why they're losing readers. Well, it's probably because of the fact you keep putting things in your articles and in these discussions that don't belong there in the first place.
They don't belong there. They're not for the best interest of the user. You remember when jokes were taken as jokes? Well, the reason why they're not taken as jokes anymore is because the people that are the joke police are, like, if you just read their Twitter profiles, I mean, I don't have to call them mentally ill. They celebrate it. Isn't one of the bigger underlying issues that people want you to not separate the art from the creator because people think that J.K. Rowling is a piece of shit and now they can't enjoy Harry Potter? It's dumb. Well, I think that a lot of people do that. And, like, you're always going to have a reason why somebody is going to come up with an excuse for, like, why. Like, Stephen King says a bunch of stupid shit on Twitter. And I actually, like, by the way, like, I looked into what J.K. Rowling said for, like, 3 seconds, and then I thought to myself, why do I care about a UK author's opinion on transgenders? And then I just immediately closed it, and I thought about something that was more important, like boobs.
I originally went to go and read that article
totally
because it was talking about their first impressions, and I was just trying to gather a bunch of people's first impressions on the game. And then all of a sudden you want to go off on this tangent on something that was already disproven in the first place?
Yeah.
What are we doing?
It's a power play.
What is this?
That's all it is.
You know, this isn't the first time we've seen this. The Wizard game.
Ooh.
Yeah, that's right. Hogwarts Legacy. Game critics and journalists dogpiled this game as hard as they could. Wired.com gave it a 1 out of 10, not because of the gameplay, not because of the aesthetics, but because of the fact that J.K. Rowling had something to do with it, even though they're just the creator of the source material and actually had nothing to do with the actual creation of the video game, but that didn't matter. Meanwhile, a slew of other reviewers boycotted even reviewing the game in the first place. Some magazines didn't even post reviews whatsoever.
I didn't blame any of the streamers for not playing the game because a lot of people got harassed for playing the game, and some people just don't want to get harassed. Like, I remember Silvervale got fucking, like, people went crazy on her about her playing the game. But I think that really, this is the way that I look at it, is that I have a very good memory, and I remember the people that that did that kind of stuff. And eventually there will be something that will make them look bad. And I will be making 3 YouTube videos about it. And I will farm it as much as I can. And if possible, I would destroy their career. That's right. That's the way I do things. That's how I handle things. I have got a good memory and I'm very patient. And if something takes me 5 years, that wasn't too long at all. Yep, I will farm them. Absolutely.
Ever. And many of those that did actually review it still made sure to drop a little
And
piece
I have
of their...
done this to people before, by the way. I have. I don't like to name names, but there's been people that I have absolutely done this to. And every time that I think back on the fact that their life is irreparably damaged because of me, it makes me so happy. I feel so good. And there is nothing in the world that makes me feel better than that. It's there are very few times in life where you have the opportunity to do the right thing. And in the cases where I do, I like to do it. The sweet feeling of revenge. I love revenge. I do. Absolutely. That's a bad thing to do? No, it's not. The bad thing to do is to allow bad actors to exist without consequences. Yeah, no, that's no, I don't agree with that.
Mind about J.K. Rowling in the reviews. What are the chances that we see the same thing with Black Myth Wukong? Is it going to suffer the same fate?
Bad thing not to do it. Yeah,
regardless
exactly.
of how many people tried to derail Hogwarts Legacy, it ended up being the first title in 15 years to beat Call of Duty in sales, selling 23 million copies in 2023.
Yeah.
Proving that
and also, I think another element of this is the fact that all the people that were virtue signaling about not buying the game probably bought it anyway. Because you can't, like, big surprise, people can't control themselves with entertainment. That's it. My Chinese wife has an ancient Chinese saying, and it says it's never too late for revenge. Yeah. I love that. That's, you know what? Man, maybe China not so bad after all. Is it more like righteousness than revenge in some ways? I don't like ever thinking of myself as like doing the right thing or helping anybody. It's enough for me to just fuck with somebody that I don't like. Like, I don't want anybody to think that I have like a savior complex. I don't need to be in the right in order to enjoy fucking somebody over. Now, it might make it feel better, maybe a little bit, but I don't need this. That's bullying? Depends on who they are.
Issues have no impact whatsoever on what games players want to play and what they want to buy. Hell, back when Activision Blizzard went through their major controversy, the players that were leaving the game weren't leaving because of what happened at the company. They were quitting because the game sucked. And as soon as they came out...
That's a fucking fact. That is a fucking fact. Absolutely. Yeah, everybody just happened to quit the game during Korthia. Oh, yeah, I'm sure that was because of the sexual harassment lawsuit. Oh, yeah. That's the real reason why people stopped playing the game. It was during Shadowlands.
The new expansion, the vast majority of the players return to the game. I think that there are those in media today that are afraid of losing influence, afraid of games, studios, and publishers that they can't pressure in some way, shape, or form. If the readers aren't listening and the game makers don't listen either, then their relevance is nothing more than a flickering candle in the wind and they're running out of wick. There is no verifiable proof of game science mistreating their employees. And the only thing that you have to go off of are some jokes that they have made on the internet that any other human would make. Things that you see all of the time. Creating victims out of thin air. What's probably worse for them is the truth that they're coming to realize. Customers only care about the value of the product itself and not how it was made or who it was made by.
That's exactly right. And this is something that everybody that was the fans of AI or anti-fans of AI were very unhappy whenever I said this. Very unhappy. Oh, man. Yeah. My phone is made by slaves and I don't care. How many of you guys would rather your phone be made by slaves than pay an extra $100 for it? Me? Yeah.
These niche audiences who actually
Shut the fuck up. Somebody goes, I'd pay extra. Fucking stop it. Stop it. Like, listen, like, we have enough, like, there's enough actual fucking drama and, like, negative shit that people have to say about me. We don't have to invent new things. Okay, guys?
do by things based on morals is useless because likely they don't even exist in the first place, and even if they did, they probably don't even
They're
play
circumstantial.
video games. This is only another factor that devalues the perspective and the voice of traditional games media and reviewers. And I know that there are good professional journalists and reviewers that are out there, but I wish that they were calling this.
By the way, Tibetan monks can do this. I tried to learn how to do this myself, but I could never figure it out. Yeah, I couldn't do it. Like, 'cause it's crazy. I know. It's a stick. Yeah, I tried to do it with bamboo. The bamboo would keep breaking
stuff out, especially the writer from IGN
it's really
and The
hard.
Guardian, because this is only serving to damage their credibility and the credibility of all games media. The lack of independent thought and reasoning within games media today is staggering. It just blows my mind. At this point, I cannot wait for Black Myth Wukong to come out, not because I can't wait to play it, which obviously I can't wait to play it, but just to see the hot takes. Because you know for a fact, because for how long some of these different articles, journalists, and media sites have been running this headline and running with this narrative, you know they're going to be including that stuff going forward. Still trying to ask and find out, yeah, but you still didn't say that, you know, it doesn't reflect on your studio or anything like that. What does that even matter?
What does this, what does this have to do with the game? What the hell are you talking about the game for? Like, what are we talking about? We talking about the game, bro. Like, what's this got to be? What is this? Games media credibility is already almost gone, though. No, it's been gone. It's just that now people are realizing it. Why is there a huge controversy with every new big game nowadays? Stellar Blade controversy, Elden Ring controversy, etc. Because mediocre losers like to complain when somebody else shows degrees of excellence that they can't even imagine of. It's the same reason why people like to always talk down about new streamers. Guys like Kai that try to reinvent the game. There's always, you've got these little rat crabs fucking try and drag them down. Mr. Beast makes videos. To be fair, some of this stuff was legitimate. But before the actual bad shit came out, think of all those rat crabs. He's taking advantage of blind people by letting them see. They're just rat crabs, man. That's it. Somebody tries to work and go above and beyond, and you see every other loser on the internet try to drag them back down. And you want to know why? It's like, if you want to figure out why somebody's doing something, figure out what they get out of it. And what they're getting out of it is that now that they have compartmentalized and rationalized a person's good actions, or it made them feel not as good, now they don't feel as guilty for the fact that they've wasted their entire fucking life complaining about things on the internet that nobody will ever care about. It's all about them. That's the real reason.
Like, they haven't made a joke
Misery
or a
loves
joke
company.
or anything like that in the past. It's so disingenuous. And that's one of the reasons why the vast majority...
Massively disingenuous, and everybody can see it. The amount of people that project their PTSD from Cyberpunk and think every game released with shitty performance is crazy. I think that there's a good chance that Black Myth Wukong is going to release with a shitty PC port. I do. I think there's a very good chance of it. I think there's at least like a 15% chance. And that's just the way it is. Elden Ring released with shitty PC optimization. I hope it doesn't. But we'll see what happens.
People have just completely turned off of reading articles or IGN
For
or
like one
any
day,
of
yeah.
these companies anymore. Is because it's so
The
disingenuous.
world's burning
It's
PCs.
so fake. It's so
Misinformation. EVGA had a defect inside of a certain graphics card line, and the problem was actually not with New World. You have
fake.
to remember that, like with me, I remember every controversy that's ever happened and all the details for it. You're not going to catch me in some fucking bullshit. Try to put your agendas out there. They even took accountability for it.
Companies anymore. Is because
EVGA
it's so
sad.
disingenuous. It's so
Hey,
fake.
every one of mine was
It's so
EVGA
fake.
too.
You don't care about any of these things. You're just searching for a headline that you hope will get clicks.
Yep.
That's all it is. Everybody can see it. Everybody knows it. Most of this stuff now, you're just making it up out of thin air. It's just even worse. Because now it's not only that we didn't find you entertaining, right? So we stopped reading because of that. But now we can't even trust the words that you say because you're just going to say whatever you want to hopefully try to get somebody to look at what you're saying. What's funny is, and I should have brought this up, I might end up making another video about this, but recently I just saw that PC Gamer put out an article talking about putting community notes on YouTube videos and how this games writer was talking about how how much YouTubers like to lie. Pot calling the kettle black.
YouTubers like to lie. Uh-huh. I guess the lie is... the lie is the thing that they disagree with. They like to clickbait for sure. Yeah, I think that clickbait is kind of annoying for sure. That's some projection there. I think here's really the truth. You want my hot take? I think everybody misrepresents titles in order to get clicks. I think that YouTube does it. I think YouTubers do it. I think streamers do it. I think journalists do it. I think that they all do it. But the difference with a lot of these journalists that work at these publications is that when you watch the actual video, the video itself, unless you're watching Mr. Beast, seems to be authentic. But the difference is that the content itself from these articles is not even authentic either.
Meanwhile, none of these journalists seem to hold each other accountable. You guys ever notice that? You see YouTubers all the time. They'll go back and forth. Somebody will say something. They'll hold them honest. They'll make videos on it. Obviously, they can farm it. But you don't often see any of these games journalists ever going after one another for anything. Somebody writes a bad article or they lie about something or misrepresent something. Nobody wants to talk about it. At least not on the professional side. I mean, they could call that professionalism. I could call it dishonest. Anyway, I'm looking forward to Black Myth Wukong. What about you guys?
I am.
Anyway,
I'm gonna
get out
out of
here.
it. I
Thank
really
you guys
hope
for
it's gonna be
watching. I
fun,
hope you
man.
guys enjoyed the video. If you guys
really
did
do.
like the video, subscribe to the channel and catch me live on Twitch if you guys want to watch me play some video games, talk about gaming news, and chill out. Anyway, stay
Looks
cool,
fucking
stay
incredible.
righteous,
I'm
stay
hyped.
safe, my friends, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.
There it is. It's more like games journalists don't care about games. Games journalists care more about their perspective and like their viewpoints being reinforced by the games more than the games themselves. And I think that a lot of gaming journalists, they have a very toxic relationship with their audience. And I think this is something that streamers have too, in a lot of cases. And you can see streamers that have this happen, where it's like they have this very antagonistic and standoffish like relationship with their audience. And it's so, do you? No, I used to. And I think that really when I talk about a lot of this stuff, I speak from some of it from genuine experience whenever I've had this happen myself. So that's, I think, the case with a lot of people, right? Doesn't surprise me. No one said a review site is gamer focused because there's a market for it. That's obvious. Yeah, I mean, if I had more time, I would probably do something like that. I just don't really have the time for it, right? Used to be a game journalist. I was quoted often IGN 2005 to 7. It's more problematic with editors changing your scores or pushing you to focus on things. Yeah, I'm sure it's probably a lot worse than what people lead on. It's like protesters and activists. They care about disrupting normal people's lives more rather than the actual issues that they're protesting about. Well, I think that most people, again, in order to understand why they're doing something, it's because of the fact that it makes them feel good. and it makes them feel like they're doing the right thing. That's the main focus, nothing else besides that. Feels like a one-sided chat room. We get chastised being parasocial, but that's just your brand. I wonder if you actually just hate us. Oh, I actually just hate you guys? No, I mean, I think I've spent too much time on stream to just hate you guys. Yeah, no, that's not the case. But here's really the way that I see it, is that I think that a lot of journalists have a relationship with their audience where it's like they view their audience as like a bunch of primates that they're trying to break through to and like spread the good word of like whatever their agenda is. And they insult the intelligence of their audience tremendously. I think that they're patronizing to the audience. And not only that, but I think they are the worst type of patronizing, which is they are patronizing in a way that is insulting to the intelligence of the audience. They're like, we are better than you, and they do it from like a moral standpoint. And I think that's what really annoys the most people. They're missionaries speaking to savages. Yeah, I think that's basically what happens. They see their audience as babies. Yeah, pretty much like that. Yeah, whereas like for me, like I do think that I have a better insight on a lot of things than other people do. I do. And like I have no problem. Like I'll say, like, for example, you know, like whether it was like that night media thing yesterday. Yes, I think the fact that I've been a top streamer for almost 10 years now, I literally own a company that's a talent management company. I also started another company that worked like that, like OTK, and I've worked with multiple companies like this in the past. I do think that I'm an expert. I do know what I'm talking about, right? I understand this better than almost anybody else. Same with streaming or media or anything else. Like, this is something I'm an expert in, etc. But outside of that, I pretty much just put my opinion out there. That's what I say. You don't come at from a moral standpoint. No. And I'll give you guys a link to this video. I love this video, by the way. This is like, this is my favorite video. Yeah. Be open to changing your mind when an argument is good. Yeah. If it's a good argument. Absolutely. Do you have any VTubers on your agency? I think the better question is if we have up to 100 by now. Yeah. If the company is losing money on subs, why don't they just fire the bad journalists and hire good gamers? The reason why is that, when your arm gets infected and you have to cut off the arm, there are healthy cells inside of the arm that you have to cut off, but you can't systematically go through and remove every single bad, unhealthy cell. And I think that what happens is that these people have infected these different companies at such a systematic level that it's just simply irreparable. I honestly think that's probably what's happened with Blizzard. I do. I'm very concerned about that.